afternoon, New River Valley. I am Mary Peyton Marble, News Director at wuvt-fm 90.7 Blacksburg, here with Lieutenant Governor candidate Ghazala Hashmi. She's the official Democratic nominee for the Commonwealth. Hello, Senator Hashmi. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So, you and your opponent, John Reed, have spent a lot of time in Richmond, him as a radio host, and you as a college professor at the University of Richmond and later Reynolds Community College. What drew you into teaching, and what skills do you take into your job as the 15th District Virginia State Senator?
Well, I've always wanted to teach at the college level ever since I was in high school, and I really had a wonderful opportunity to work in a variety of different higher education settings. First at the University of Richmond here, right after I finished my degree, and then I transitioned to Reynolds Community College. And that's really where I found my passion for the work in higher education. You know, when you teach at a community college, you have the entire community inside your classroom, whether it's working parents, military veterans, our returning citizens, first generation students, and so many people from our immigrant communities here in Richmond. And that context really gave me considerable insight into the ways in which we need to improve our policies and our systems and structures in order to give every Virginian an opportunity to succeed and to thrive here. And that really drew me into the political space as well. I knew that I wanted to work on policy concerns and have an impact on the lives of the people that I care about. So it's been a wonderful opportunity, a transition. As you know, I chair the Senate Committee on Education and Health, and that's enabled me to focus on the issues that are of concern for so many Virginians.
Of course. I know you have a PhD in American literature, and so I haven't heard you answer this question, but what is your favorite book?
Well, my favorite book is Moby Dick by
Oh,
Herman
great. Oh,
Melville, and it's just such a comprehensive text, and it has so many themes and messages, and it's a book that I return to time and time again. But I have so many other favorite texts, including poetry and short stories and novels. But that is the foundation of all of American writing, and also really helps us to think through who and what we are as a country.
for sure. Definitely. You mentioned yourself, you are a past educator. Educator burnout is a bipartisan issue around the country that concerns school administrators, parents, and the general public. In 2024 to 2025 school year, Virginia saw a statewide reduction in the vacancy rate from 4.7% to 3.4%. But in Title I schools, which serve lower income communities, students have a vacancy rate of 6%. How will the Democratic Party of Virginia acknowledge this issue and support the teachers of Virginia, no matter the zip code, through new legislation?
That's a great question. And yes, you're right. We see burnout, we see retention issues, we see challenges in attracting new folks, especially young people, into the profession. And I and my colleagues have been working to address many of those concerns. And there's some clear evidence and research that points to how we can begin to really bolster our workforce in our public education system. And so, first step, of course, is to pay our teachers equitably, pay them for the professionals that they are. And Virginia lags behind teacher pay on the national level. So we are not yet meeting the standards for compensation that so many of our sister states are able to provide. So that's a first step. But, when we take a look at the research, it's not just compensation that is vitally important to our professionals in the classroom. And in fact, it is one part of it, but what we need to really focus on is ensuring that our educators are in a space and a supportive community within their school systems that enables them to really thrive as educators and continue to develop in their profession. And what we know is that when we provide high quality professional development opportunities, opportunities, when we support mentoring and opportunities for our teachers to continue to develop their skills, their pedagogy, their knowledge of their subject and discipline, that is a real factor in retaining high quality teachers. And there are so many things that we are already initiating. I filed the budget last year to fully fund our support staff. And so when we have support staff in our classrooms and our schools, they allow our teachers to focus on the work in the classroom while other professionals are able to respond to student needs around mental health counseling and other critical support services. And so we know what works, and we just need to ensure that we put those elements into place in our education system.
Of course, of course. I spoke with John Reed last week, and we talked a lot about discipline in the classroom and how I think in general the Republican ticket this year is really pushing forward more discipline in the classroom and saying that that is the issue and that the teachers are to blame. How do you respond to that? What do you think about that?
I think it's a really sad day when we try to blame our educators for the issues that so many of our young people are bringing into the classroom with them. You know, we have to acknowledge that there is trauma in so many of our communities. There is a serious uptick in mental health needs, and I think it's a shame that John Reed is laying blame on our educators rather than disciplining students for the trauma that they are experiencing. We need to use real approaches that demonstrate how students are further supported. So having mental health services available, ensuring that our children are not hungry in our schools, and supporting learning opportunities is one way to begin to address those challenges. You know, John Reed has also called for defunding public education. He wants to close our public schools down. And rather than support the education that we have and addressing the areas of need that we need to work on, privatizing education, creating a two-tiered model, a system of wholesale disparity is not the answer. I'm fully committed to protecting and improving the public education that we provide here in Virginia.
Of course. Thank you. Your website says that, quote, we have a fundamental responsibility to fight hatred wherever we see it and to ensure that this country's ideals of justice, equality, and fairness are reality to all, unquote. How will you take action to address what your campaign calls fighting bigotry on a statewide level?
So this is an area that I've been working on for much of my professional life. You know, I have been a board member of the Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities. This is an organization that was established in the wake of World War II to counter anti-Semitism, racism, prejudice, and bigotry across the Commonwealth. And it's a work and area that I feel deeply passionate about. So whether we're talking about racial prejudice, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, attacks on our LGBTQ communities, we have a lot of work to do to ensure that our citizens are able to feel safe and secure inside the Commonwealth. A first step, of course, is education. And rather than moving in the direction that Glenn Youngkin and John Reed support, where we take away books and opportunities for discussion and learning about the complexities of the global world that we live in, we need to ensure that our education and our curricula are providing students with an opportunity to engage in a robust understanding of history, of the different cultures, different traditions, and that they are able to engage in critical thinking, critical discussions that allow them to be fully informed and teach them the skills, frankly, frankly, on how to work in a complex society that is not homogeneous, that actually brings them into contact with different perspectives. That's the whole purpose of education, and we can do that much better here in Virginia and continue the progress that we were making prior to the Youngkin administration.
Yeah, do you feel similarly about the attacks on DEI in universities? Last year, Virginia Tech removed their DEI programs throughout the university under Glenn Youngkin's orders. How do you feel about that in relation to education in college settings?
Yes, I've been fighting the efforts of the Youngkin administration to whitewash our history, to remove opportunities for our students to learn about the complicated world in which they live in and the history of their own country. And it's a real shame, when the history standards were first rolled out by the Youngkin administration, that they even removed the discussion of Martin Luther King Jr. and his profound impact on our country and on civil rights from the curricula that was offered to our students. It really took a lot of us challenging those false standards that the Youngkin administration was pushing in order to make sure that we are telling the full history of this nation. And so any efforts that we've seen recently to remove the standards that we have are really an effort to and there's no other way to say it but to whitewash the history of our country. And so we need to make sure that all students and all people not only feel supported here, but that they have every opportunity. And fighting against discrimination is a critical part of the work that we do in this regard.
Thank you, thank you. I'm going to quickly move on to housing. How would the Democratic's ticket's housing plan, which involves cutting red tape, specifically support college towns like Blacksburg, which has struggled to address a severely strained housing market to balance student populations and long-term residents?
We know that housing affordability is a crisis point here in Virginia, as it is in many other states. And I serve on the Virginia Housing Commission. I've been on that commission now for 6 years, and we've been working to tackle those issues of affordability. We know that housing prices rise when there is a lack of supply, and increasing supply to meet the demand is one step that we need to take. We also need to ensure that we are looking closely at those bureaucratic efforts that delay our ability to ensure that housing is available. I just heard a report yesterday that says it often takes our home developers and our apartment and residential community developers 5 years from start to finish to be able to complete a project. That's way too long when we know that we have so many citizens looking for housing, especially, as you mentioned, in our college communities where local residents are in competition with college students that come in waves. And so we need to be able to get projects developed faster. We need to decrease the bureaucracy that often impedes that progress. We need to look closely at the zoning regulations and work with our local government to see how to improve access and availability of housing.
Of course, of course. Thank you. If elected, what would you want to be remembered for by your time in office?
Well, my biggest goal has been always now to work on improving education. I came in with that purpose when I joined the Virginia Senate in 2020, and given my background as an educator for 30 years, I bring an insight that I think is helpful, not just for the higher education background I have, but also the work that I've done in K-12. And I hope that my biggest impact will be in that space, ensuring that we have a full alignment from our preschool programs through our K-12 public education programs and into either higher education or career and technical opportunities that we're able to provide Virginians. Education is the foundation of our society, is the foundation of opportunity for everybody, and it is a critical part of our democracy. And so being able to build a robust and high quality education system that all Virginians can be proud of is going to be my primary focus.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was
Have a good
wonderful
rest
to
of your
talk
day.
to you.
It's wonderful to talk to you as well. Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too.